Today I'm reviewing the Yonex Arcsaber 11 Play badminton racket. It's the younger sibling of the Arcsaber 11 Pro and Tour for more advanced players. And if you're familiar with buying badminton rackets, you know that the stiffer the shaft is, the more technical skill you need to take full advantage of the racket. And so the Arcsaber 11 Play comes in just on the flexible side of the middle on the stiffness scale. That means it's suitable for low intermediate players like me or high beginner players. It only comes in the 4U weight class, which tends to be most popular for doubles players. I've played with this racket for a year or so on court, and I bought it with my own money to give you an unbiased review. I'm Aske from Beast Badminton, and let's first look at what everyone loves: power. So in terms of power is where I noticed the biggest difference, because I was playing with the super powerful Yonex Arcsaber 100 game, which is the intermediate version of the racket Victor Axelsen plays with. And I immediately noticed the lack of power when I switched to the Arcsaber 11 Play on my backhand shots, my clears, and just raw smash power. All of a sudden, my opponents began returning many more of my smashes, whereas before I felt like a one-trick pony and smash was my weapon, and I would just hammer smashes in the ground anytime I got. But at some point I realized that many of these smashes would end the rally either by me winning the point or by hitting the net and causing a fault. And so I realized that I either had to go back to the powerful racket and keep hammering away, or keep playing with the Arcsaber 11 Play and get more creative and adjust my game and find different ways to win rallies. I chose the second option, and now a year later I'm happy with the decision. I feel my game is much stronger. I'm less dependent on when my opponents stop lifting or clearing, and I'm getting more comments from other players that my game has improved. In terms of tactics, I'm now using the smash more as a building block during the attack rather than expecting to win the rally right away. And so ultimately that means I'm losing a lot fewer points because I don't depend on using so much raw power to overwhelm my opponents, and I can play with slightly less power but slightly more control because I expect my opponents to return the shuttle. My point is that if you're coming from a super fast headlight racket, you'll definitely feel this one has more power. But if you're coming from a super head-heavy, powerful racket, you'll find it more difficult and less effortless to generate that same power. But it's still possible. For me, that has been great because I mostly play doubles, but I do find myself missing that extra power when I occasionally play singles games. Especially because my footwork isn't that great, and so if I'm pushed to the backcourt and I'm late to the shuttle and I can't do a big swing in time, I'm really struggling to send the shuttle all the way to the backcourt every single time. So overall, there's decent power in the Arcsaber 11 Play, but it's just not as effortless and easy to generate if you're coming from a super powerful racket. Next, let's move on to the midcourt and defense. So I've noticed the biggest improvement in my games in the defense and midcourt area after switching to the Arcsaber 11 Play. And that's because I don't need to be as tight with my racket up in the ready position compared to more powerful rackets. It moves slightly faster through the air, and that fraction of a second tend to make the difference between hitting the frame or hitting outside the sweet spot, or hitting the sweet spot and producing a much better return that can put your opponents under pressure instead of just sending the shuttle back over the net. Now the downside is that I've found I need a bit more of a whip on blocks compared to more powerful rackets where it's fun, you can just put the racket on and the shuttle bounces back over the net nicely. So overall, I find that the Arcsaber 11 has a good balance between being quick and fast in defense, but you still have enough power in the midcourt area to send the shuttle to the opponent's rear court if you don't have time to do a big swing. Next, let's look at net play. I've had no issues with tight battles around the net with the Arcsaber 11 Play. As you would expect, it falls somewhere in the middle in terms of how much power you have to apply to send the shuttle just over the net and how much control you have. Speaking of control, let's move on to control and shuttle hold next. Now the Arcsaber series is known for being somewhere between the super fast rackets and the super powerful rackets, with an emphasis on control and what Yonex calls shuttle hold, which is that fraction of a second where the shuttle stays longer on the strings that allows you to guide the shuttle around the court with more control. Now when I have this racket on court, this feels like the story of the Emperor's new clothes. Other players seem to be able to notice the difference, but to be honest with you, I can't tell. This could be due to my limited skills, but my point is, if you're somewhere around the low intermediate level like me, you'll probably not notice the difference either, and so I wouldn't worry too much about it. Next, let's look at the verdict. There is a reason why I've been playing with this racket for so long. It's fun, even without being super amazing or particularly bad in any one area. It's great all around, and it tends to cost less than $100, and for that price it's a steal. In fact, I like it so much that I got two of them so that the grip on one of them can dry off while I'm playing with the other. Next, let's look at what type of player the Arcsaber 11 Play is best suited for. I think the Arcsaber 11 Play will be great for you if you're a low intermediate player or high beginner that plays mostly doubles. And that's because the shaft is slightly on the flexible side, which can help you generate some power if your technique is not great yet. But it's not the most flexible racket you'll find out there. At the same time, it comes only in the 4U weight class, which tends to be most popular for doubles, meaning that it's slightly faster instead of being slightly more heavy and powerful. That's handy because in doubles, you don't desperately need that raw power as much as you would in singles. This racket can also be a great fit for you if you're not ready to commit to a super powerful or super fast racket, but you want something all around. And finally, you'll probably like this racket if you want to force yourself away from smashing and into new, more creative territory with your rallies. Next, let's look at who this racket is not that suitable for. Now, I don't think you'll like this racket if you're just playing singles or if you're at the mid-intermediate level or above. It'll just be too flexible for you. Now, I break the intermediate level down into lower intermediate, mid-intermediate, and upper intermediate. And so if you're at the mid or upper intermediate level, this racket will probably be too flexible for your liking. And finally, if you love raw power or super fast speed as the one and only metric for you, this probably isn't the right racket for you. Before ending this Yonex Arcsaber 11 Play review, I want to talk about strings. As always, even if your racket comes factory strung, you should get it restrung before you get on court, since those strings tend to be less than great. I've tested a bunch of different badminton strings with the Arcsaber 11 Play, but of course not all of them out there, so take this with a grain of salt. I've liked the classic Yonex BG80 string, but I'm also seeing that the brand new X-Bolt 68, which focuses more on durability, might be a good fit for us low intermediate players. But in all transparency, I haven't tested that string yet. I've liked playing with the tension 10.5 or 23 pounds. If you're interested in ratings, comparisons with other rackets, and all that good stuff, check out the blog. I'm Aske from Beast Badminton. Leave a comment below. I'll see you on court.